Welcome to day number 3 of this Congress about the Slav Congress 175 years ago. If I would have to say how many days they have been together, I would say longer than we. But still, we have a reflecting possibility concerning the event, the very event of those days 175 years ago, and we can add reflections and activities concerning this event. And this, our own conference is one of them. As you have seen in the program, this occasion we would like to use to present bodies, commissions, being active in the field of Slavic studies, and in the field of Eastern European studies, because this is to be seen together. 2 of them are this morning on the program. The first is the Commission Internationale des Études Historiques Slaves. The second one is the Kommission, ich lese es jetzt nicht polnisch vor.
The Commission of the Early History of the Slavs, named by Professor Gerard Labuda, which is active at the International Committee of the Slavists.
Okay, and this, thank you very much. This fits very much together, because you had seen on the program, not on the side where's the program of this morning, but before, of yesterday, that for moderation there indicated my name. And I will do this in a way which is called in German Anmoderation. So I'm going to say that we have 2 parts, and Professor Grzesik and me, we decided that at 10 o'clock I hand over to him. And until then, we will be presenting the activities of our commission, which is a commission which is very much connected with the World Association of Historical Sciences. Before we start with this, and I'm going to present you who is on the panel this morning, I have to tell you that all of those having got a contract for being here, please sign and hand it over. That's from the bureaucratical side very important. And the same goes for the fact that there are tables there where we have to sign that we are here. Yeah, just to prove that taxpayers' money is spent in the right way. So, having said this, I would like to hand over the floor to our current president of the commission, Professor Giulia Lamy from the University of Milan. Afterwards, Dusan Kovac, the past president of our commission, is going to give you a short information what happened in the last 8 years, and then I, in charge of being the general secretary, that sounds a bit strange, but it is the title, of the commission, will give you a short overview about the more than 7 decades of activities of this commission. And at the end, we are going to have a presentation from Paris by Professor Catherine Aurel, who is the president of the International Committee of Historical Sciences, having been a member of this commission before she became elected the president. That's the program for the next 50 minutes. Julia, please, the floor is yours. You shall be prepared, and then it goes. Yeah, please. This is not working.
It's table 1. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, I beg your pardon because my voice today is not very high. I don't know why, but it's for me a pleasure and an honor to be here and to speak about a subject that was at the center of my studies and of also the studies of the commission to which I belong. And I think that it is truly important today to think back to 1848 and to Slavic Congress in Prague for the question that it opened, and that are still closely, not closed today, as proof of the historical and historiographical richness of that event. And as president of the Commission Historique des Études Slaves, I naturally recall that our commission dedicated a meeting in Vienna to the 150th anniversary of the Prague Congress. In 1998, the major contribution of which were then published in 2000 by Horst Haselsteiner. It wasn't the first time, nevertheless, nor would it certainly be the last, that the attention of our Commission and the International Congress of Historical Sciences focused on the theme of Slavic identities. I would like to remember two publications done by our Commission, edited by Bianca Vallota, Correct Images and Distorted Images in 2007, and Rewriting Slavic History in 2009. In turn the result of specific meetings. And let me briefly return to Edward Saden's excellent essay, 1848, Cheese and Slavic Historical Studies in the New Millennium, a synoptic view, which concluded the above-mentioned Haselsteiner book. Saden traced the framework in which scientific relationships had developed during the years of the Cold War, and illustrated how, despite obstacles and political interference, a fruitful dialogue between Eastern and Western scholars had always been maintained. There are many episodes, and it is worth going to see them again because they remind us of the existence of that ecumene der Historiker in which traditional historiography, Marxism, the Annal School, the Anglo-American and German social sciences and philosophy could coexist and interact. Particularly interesting today is also to recall what Saden wrote on the need to courageously face the dividing lines that had arisen between countries and scientific communities during the long Soviet period, noting how at the Montreal World Congress in 1995, and I quote, pardon, new ethnic and historiographical problems related to the collapse of communism in the USSR and Eastern Europe were discussed in the main program. Indeed, Saden declared, quote, "Yet these problems are important. Certainly, the lack of public discussion and critical scholarly knowledge concerning the relationship of Russia to her borderland and ethnic minorities made it difficult to challenge official myths and mistaken policies that led to the fall of Tsarist Empire in 1917 and of its Soviet successor state in 1991. But by the same token, historians in today's Poland and Russia, as well as those in the new states to the south and northwest of Russia and in the Balkans, need to challenge with fresh approaches to history the various untenable historical myths and national stereotypes inherited from the past. These myths and stereotypes continue to influence the thinking of many of their compatriots. Taden wrote this in 2000. It was not without bitterness that I reread his balance sheet at the end of 20th century, and his basically optimistic forecasts for the new millennium, when he hoped that the future congresses would think of plans for future discussion that could assist Belarusian, Estonian, Latvian, Lithuanians, Polish, Russian, Southern Slav, and Ukrainian historians in their effort to re-examine the issues that have divided them in the past. What can be said? Much has been done, and in the first 15 years of our 21st century, we have indeed witnessed the development of an initial dialogue on many important occasions. But now, faced with the Russo-Ukrainian war and the propaganda that accompanies it, in which cynical and instrumental use is being made of precisely those myths and stereotypes that Thaden spoke of as remnants of the past, we cannot fail to feel once again called to do clarity, to produce knowledge. Unfortunately, we can't do anything also. And it is sad to see how Taden dedicated a particular thought to the Ukrainians and the role they could have played in our commission. Let me quote a final quotation. Into brackets. Ukrainians are the second to the largest Slavic people. Should they not be on the board, and should not their delegation be increased in size? And their Khrushchevsky is not to be overlooked, whose 10 volumes of national history up to 1660s are now being translated into English in Canada, and whose historical views deserve critical comparison with those of the official Tsarist and Soviet views of East Slav history. And I can say with full knowledge of the fact, also with Putin's view of East Slav history, of which the Ukrainians are direct victims, but also the Belarusians, who are co-opted into the reunification plan of Eastern Slavs. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Julia, for your thoughts, having been connected with that what is all in our heads, and it's the situation in in the very east of this continent, combined with the very new issue of the Slavic or Slavonic or Slav issue and the issue of unity or even not. Thank you. Now on the agenda is the name of Dusan Kovac, who used to be the president of our commission before Julia was elected. And yeah, come on. And he is here not only because he is in Prague for the moment because he does research, but he is one of the two presidents in the long history of the commission having Slav origin. Julius Bardach, in his head.
This was new for me. Thank you. I would just like to greet you and express my pleasure to be with you together after some years. I am very glad that this commission is alive and is not alive, but it is I think, in good condition with many activities at present. I remember our activities were very complex. Very important were some our doctoral summer schools, especially one in northern Italy. Gargnano. Zdenko said it was 15 years ago.
Was it 12? 12.
12.
It was very important to have a doctorate, some young people. The turning point in our commission was, I think, organizing the joint session by the World Congress in Jinan, China. The theme was Vienna Congress, 1815. It was not only topical because it was in China in the time 200 years anniversary of Vienna Congress, but it was some turning point in activities of our commission because it was possibility to open the space from Slavonic problematic to the whole Europe. Vienna Congress was important for the Slavonic world as well, but it was European event. I remember a young colleague from South America had a paper among connections with South America in the time. And I think this tendency is important for our commission at the present as well. The Slavonic world is a part of this central, eastern and southeastern Europe. It is very important territory in the history, but it unfortunately at present as well, but it is another thing. Yesterday we discussed the matter of some changing in the commission, changing the name from commission to network.
I'm going to talk about it.
Yeah, Frank will speak more. I think it is very important as well. It is not only changing the name, that is the possibility to bring some institutions, more people to the activities of the commission or the network. So, I think the commission is a good condition, and I would like to wish not only success, but really to bring the new scientific results. So, good luck.
Thank you, Dusan. This brings me to the third point on the program, which is dedicated to history, objectives, achievements, and future. to all of these 4 points already have been made some mentions. And I make my own notes and I will pick what has not been said yet. But what is clear is that our commission is a commission which was framed and formed by the World Organization of Historians, of Historical Sciences. And it is a child of the Cold War. It was as early as in 1947, when the International Committee of Historical Sciences re-met for the first time after the Second World War in Paris to discuss the issue if the procedure of world congresses should be renewed or not under the condition which came into being in 1947 when the Iron Curtain just came down. And the decision was made to do so and to secure this not any longer on the money of the Rockefeller Foundation, which was the case before the Second World War, but to be funded by the UNESCO, which was newly funded at the very moment. And since at the last Congress before the Second World War, held in Zurich, the proposition was made to hold the next one in Prague. That was the initial idea to have a World Congress in Prague in '84, in summer. You all know what happened in February '84, here in Prague. So, in the end, it turned out that the first Congress of Historical Sciences after the Second World War was called to Paris. And in the preparation, there were Slavic representatives like Witold Kula or Marian Mamovis as single historians. And it was expressed the will and the need to include the world beyond the new Iron Curtain. And the idea was to form a commission, a commission des études slaves. There was no history. And this turned out in Brussels in 1952, and this is the birthday or the birth moment of this commission. And since the next Congress in Rome in '55 was already a Congress in which it became clear that the Soviet Union, represented by Anna Pankratova, would take part, and all the other socialist countries did the same. And this was the moment when the practical side of this commission, and this is why I'm calling it a child of the Cold War, to make sure that the presence of scholars active in Slavic studies coming from Slavic countries will be secured, will be there. Outside the influence of the official historiographies by the national committees of the socialist countries. And the other practical side of the whole thing was that those commissions like ours, which was the first Second World War creation, got the right to influence the agenda setting of the World Congresses. So that not only the national committees, including now the socialist ones, could propose what is going to be discussed at the World Congresses, but affiliated international organizations as well. And since our, from '55, was one of the first ones, it was no wonder that at the opening speech in 2015 in Jinan, at the World Congress, the then president said that she's very happy that these commissions like this are existing, and mentioned our commission. And this was triggering us to renew what was the aim, and I'm going to talk about the objectives in a minute in a way. Looking back to the history of this commission, we can follow two lines. One is the every 5-year World Congresses. 55 Rome, 60 Stockholm, 65 Vienna, 70 Moscow. And the other one is that the Commission, in the peak time, having more than 25 members, used to organize in between symposia. One of the symposia produced the volume which Julia mentioned. This was a conference in '98 on the 150th anniversary of the Congress we are talking about. And I have here the front page. The Prague Slav Congress, Slavic Identities, edited by Horst Haselsteiner, who afterwards became president of this commission. Other meetings took place in Boulder, Colorado, in Moscow, in Dubrovnik, and in Poznan. And we have members here like our Vice President, Zdenko Zlata, who took part in it. And who could, if you are interested in, say how this debate was going on in the early 90s, faced by a war in our region. It was the Yugoslav war. Now we are faced by a war again. So that makes us, and this is the proposition, when we have a look on the objectives, and I quote from the statutes of our commission, which were approved for the last time in 1985 at the Stuttgart World Congress. First, A, to encourage the establishment and development of scientific relations among historians Slavicists. B, to encourage the diverse initiatives in the field of research concerning the history of Slavic countries and their relations to other countries. C, to propagate the knowledge about the history of Slavic countries to all over the world. And this was the moment when the H came into the abbreviation. It was the Commission des Études Slaves, and now it became the Commission Internationale des Études Historiques Slaves. And this was a turning point in a way, because at the beginning there was a focus on cultural, literary history. That war historians came in and made clear that this topic is something which has to do more with history than initially was thought. And this brought it closer to the International Committee of Historical Sciences. And Dusan just mentioned that at the Congress in Jinan, for the first time, our commission, not only as all the other affiliated international organizations to the SISH, to the International Committee of Historical Sciences, have in the last 2 days of the World Congresses the possibility to meet and to discuss and be on the program. And since 2015, there is a possibility to form what Dusan mentioned, joint sessions. And we did it with the Slovak National Committee.
Yeah.
On the question, a new order for the old world, 200 years of the Viennese Congress. And our own session in Jinan was devoted to the question, portals of globalization to the Slavic world. And combining this and having this in China opened the interest in that what we are doing on the Slavic world. For Poznan, which was supposed to be the next Congress in 2020, we proposed the Slavic world and the Islamic world encounters cooperation conference. It was postponed 2 years, to 2002, due to the pandemic. And it was not realized in a way as we saw, because people did not show up. But this brings us to the moment to think over what we, as our commission, having this long, active members like the General Secretary, Zdenko, you will remember him, Bernard Michel, from Paris, speaking all the Slavic languages, becoming the General Secretary in '65. being active until 90. I became the general secretary in a moment when Dusan was elected president. Don't be afraid, I will not do the job for 25 years. But when there are opportunities like this to join events in the field of our commission, sticking to the objectives of our commission, then we have to participate. And this was, Christian, one of the first moments when we have been talking about if this conference would take place, this commission has to be in. And we are in. We are very grateful that we are here on the agenda. Coming to the point, future. This commission is the Commission Internationale des Études, since 85, Historique Islam. This is also, and it became clear in Poznan, it is confronted with the fact that French is out of the international communication languages. Since 55, I mentioned when Anna Pankratova came to Rome, Russian became one of the official languages of the international organization of historical studies, like German. But effectively, it's only in English. And that brought us to a debate with Catherine Aurel, whom we will see in a minute on the screen, in Poznan, to talk about to enlarge our existing name of an affiliated international organization, which will remain in French, to an English version which brings in two new elements. One is, in the beginning of the 21st century, we are fairly sure, and I would like to discuss this later on, not only on this ethnographic, ethnologic, or howsoever to be named Slavic issue. It seems to me very much 19th and maybe 20th century, but not 21st. And to bring in the region, or I will not talk about area studies, where this history happened. And so the proposition is to enlarge the name from the Commission Internationale des Études Slav to International Slavic and East European, that's the region, history networks. Why network? Network gives the opportunity to include institutional bodies. If that is a commission, you have commissioners. These are individuals. If you have a network, you can act in a network having institutional members. And since we have a pattern for this, and this is the Polish Academy of Sciences, since Juliusz Barda became the president, he said, okay, our academy is going to be a member. He was the president, etc. So, is paying the fee because our commission has to pay a fee, a cotisation to the World Organization. And the commission can, on the basis of purely academic qualities, the members, but they are backed by the institutional membership, by the membership institutions wherever they are. This is the proposition to enlarge this scope to an organizational setting, having been named a network, and bringing in institutions like, why not the Historical Institute or the Slavic Institute here of the Academy, or my institute, or Regensburg, where we had another doctoral workshop in Regensburg. So this is the proposition in order to enlarge the Einzugsgebiet of ongoing research, combining with the material security of doing what is in the objectives. Zusammenarbeit, cooperation, making sure, and all this. And since all this is to be made as a decision inside our commission, but being discussed with you, because you are all representatives of institutions being here, not only of the institutions having this joint venture of this conference, but I would say that talking about a change in the setting of the international 72 years old commission on Slavic history, on the occasion of the anniversary of the Prague Congress here in Prague, has something of a magic. And we should, I think, take this moment. And I'm very curious that Katharina Dorel, whom we will see in a minute, and I saw her video. Oh God, Anita Hessler. She used to be an active member in our commission, and she first in Jinan became General Secretary of the World Organization, and now elected President. They do have a bureau meeting in Lisbon, ending yesterday, and she said for reasons of sustainability, she will not fly from Lisbon, where they are meeting, to Prague, but home to Paris, and from there she sent us 3.5 minutes. Let me see here if it fits to the objective.
Dear colleagues, dear friends, you are now having a meeting of the Commission for the Historical Slavic Studies, and I'm very displeased not to be with you at this moment. It was absolutely impossible to find a connection enabling me to fly from Lisbon to Prague on the morning of the 9th of June. Really difficult. So I am speaking to you now from my home in Paris, and hope that this video will reach you on Friday in Prague. The Commission for the Historical Slavic Studies has long been a really important commission of session. So this is why I really encourage you to go on with your work. I should say that with the difficulties we are facing now with the war in Ukraine and the difficulty to communicate with the colleagues in Ukraine, but also in the neighboring countries, this is all the more important that you meet today and you can discuss some of these issues. Second point, which is extremely important, is that you should be prepared now to the next steps of the meetings of session. Please remember that we are expecting a delegate of your commission to attend in Tokyo the General Assembly, which will take place in October 24. So I really hope that some of you will join the meeting in Tokyo, the General Assembly in Tokyo. This General Assembly will be extremely crucial because, as you can remember, the General Assembly is voting on the proposals for the next Congress. And so this is the third point I would like to raise now. Following this meeting we just had in Lisbon of the board meeting of session, you will receive in a few weeks the call for sessions for the next Congress in Jerusalem in 26. So be prepared to apply for as many sessions as possible. Remember, main team, specialized sessions, roundtables and joint sessions. So we are really looking forward to receive your proposals until the end of next year, well, more precisely until January of next year. And this provisional program, which will be decided by the board in the next meetings, will be adopted by the General Assembly in Tokyo in October 24. So you are having quite a lot of challenges now to fill, and I really look forward to pursue to contain the work with the Commission for the Historical Slavic Studies. So this is all for me now. I wish you a very fruitful meeting, a very pleasant meeting, And again, very, very sorry not to be with you in Prague this morning. Thank you very much, and looking forward to meet you very soon in Tokyo. Bye-bye.
Okay, so she mentioned a thing which would belong to that what we in the remaining 12 minutes could we tackle as well. This is the idea to collect ideas for the agenda setting of the next Congress. As she mentioned, it is going to be held in Jerusalem. It takes always a long time to bring this program together, and it's always good, as Dusan said, to be quick, having good ideas, and to bring it in. So, if we could start this process of bringing together questions concerning the issues which have but might be tackled on the occasion of a World Congress facing the long tradition and history of this Commission, being a child, as I said, of the Cold War, being active, starting in the early 90s with the meetings in Poznan, to come to terms, or to try to come to terms with the post-Cold War world and our Slavic world, now faced with a situation which we do not know if there will be for a longer time a new Cold War. This is something which has to be faced, and it might be faced on the basis of cooperation, including the Slavic world and Eastern Europe. So, if you have ideas, if you have questions, that's why there is mentioned Q&A, questions on your side, answers on our side. Then we will have a couple of minutes for this. Nothing. Ebenmash.
Maybe I don't know if I know how to present a sort of short proposal topic.
Yeah, sure.
Of a topic for the next year. It will be 115 years anniversary of Agrian process, Zagreb process, which in fact marked slowly the end of this Austro-Slavic concept, which was the mainstream, something like mainstream of the Slav Congress of 1848. And Masaryk's role there was just crucial, because Masaryk at that time was a proponent of this mainstream out of philosophy and so on. And just this topic, of course, includes this area, so roughly speaking, between Russia, Germany, which might be something like continuation of architecture now, and might be highly topical, facing the events in Ukraine, Poland, and so on.
Excellent idea. Maren Rüger, Jan Richling.
Yeah, it's what I want to say. It's not topical. It's rather about the structure. I listened to your explanation very carefully, but still I have to say that I'm not familiar with the structure of the commission or the organization at all during the decades. But my question, but I was convinced by the way Frank was proposing, or that you are discussing, to open it up in a kind of network, but also to enhance the visibility. Because in my understanding, also, I would wonder why, if there are a lot of Europeans and also Central Europeans engaged, but still it shouldn't sound Eurocentric what I'm saying now, but still, I would say we are now since a few decades all asked to go to the big congresses in the United States, for example, the ACES, and show our research about the region there. But I would wonder if the Commission couldn't be evolved in something that you were proposing, a kind of network, and becomes more visible, so that the research on the region made by the researchers from the region, but also other Europeans, becomes the main focus point. So actually I would suggest, or I would say that this sounds for me a very good way for the future, and I also would enhance or underline this idea to broaden it for institutional members, so you could integrate also the associations. For example, we have in Germany an association that is specialized in the history of Central and Eastern Europe, to integrate them. I'm, for example, at the moment the spokesperson for the Leibniz Association for a network on research on Central and Eastern Europe. So there are already a lot of associations that could be integrated, and I think this might be a way to broaden it and maybe also to make it a little bit more public.
Okay. We are collecting.
As far as the topics are concerned, one of the topics should be, according to me, problem of Neo-Slavism and the subsequent Slavic congresses which took place before the First World War, 1908, 1913, when proved that the cooperation of Slavic states is simply not possible due to the Second Balkan War, and eventually also the misusing of this idea of Slavic cooperation by the Soviet Union at the end of the Second World War and shortly after, before the split between the Soviet Union and Yugoslavia, which I think would be, of course, from our point now we see that definitively political cooperation on Slavonic basis is out of question.
Yeah.
But 100 years ago, the people didn't see it in this way, as we know.
Yeah, that would, thank you, that would give us a chance to jump out of this logic of having jubilees.
Yeah.
This always good to have jubilees as an argument to get money.
Exactly.
And there's a special Czech word for it. That's osličkování. That means all on the 8 is very good. Yeah. And the same goes for the International Committee of Historical Sciences. When Dusan and me said a new order for the world, 200 years of the Congress of Vienna, I said, oh yeah, fits. Yeah. But then what you said is out of this logic. Mm-hmm. And that might be more to the point. Yeah? So when we are focused on this logic, so on having this Congress on 175 years, then we need 2.5 days to have that aspect, that aspect, but it's all there. Mm-hmm. Yeah? When we are coming from a topic, then we can include, and by the way, there was one event which is not a Runda, is an eckiges jubilee, and we are out of this joining. This is why I would love this. Mm-hmm. And 115 years is not very rund. Yeah, but it's the phenomenon, having political trails on that issue. Think along about the Kramage and Genossen trail during the First World War. So the phenomenon of having trails for political actors being the uncrowned king of the Neo-Slavs, for instance. And so this is combined. That's what I see. Because this is something which is to be seen in other parts of the world as well.
I have a topical remark drawing on what you said, Frank, and on Madame Rüger. I think for the visibility, it would be a good idea to choose the next topic more in the field of area studies, if you are broaden the scope of research here. So maybe it would be appropriate to choose not a Slav topic in a narrow sense, but a topic from the area studies. And if the conference takes place in Jerusalem, would be near would be a topic to combine Jewish studies and whatever Slavic Eastern European studies. So maybe the commemorance of Zionism after the wall came down, including the history of Zionism and anti-Israelism in the socialist period, and just an idea to broaden the scope and to make it visible that it's not only Slav anymore, but that you want to broaden the scope to Eastern Europe as well.
Sure. You are the president.
May I say something about your suggestion? I had before coming here the opportunity to talk with Edoardo Tortarolo, who is our General Secretary, General Secretary of CIS. And he spoke about going to Lisbon, talking about the first step that will be Japan, in order to prepare a discussion on the main themes for Jerusalem. And they gave me the suggestion that probably will emerge a line in the general themes for the General Congress, focused on the dialogue, international relationship, inter-ethnic, that is in the same spirit as in Poznan when we spoke about encounters.
Yeah.
The word encounters, the word dialogue, probably because we live now in a very unsure world, could be one of the main topic of Jerusalem. So we have also to think about a moment of possible unity.
Yeah.
Okay.
I see two more, and that would be the end, because we have to go. We are late, and we are going to early Slavic studies then. So we have two members of our commission, Vice President Zlata and
Thank you, Frank. Maybe I need it, maybe I don't. Look, two things. I would, in my opinion, would be that as far as the proposal is concerned, perhaps we could have it both, because we are an external commission of the of CIS, to put it properly and so forth, and I don't see any reason why we should formally cease to be one like that, while at the same time broadening the scope by becoming also, as you say, a network, so that we have a formal connection with CIS. However, that connection is not as in case of internal commissions, where they in effect set the agenda, we set the agenda. So enough said. The other thing is, since some have suggested that we should broaden it and maybe not call it area studies, but something like that, I would propose a topic which, in my opinion, can hardly be more important in the history of Eastern Europe and particularly East Central Europe, and this is, of course, 1526. In 1526, the Habsburgs were elected, of course, as kings of Hungary, and from then on they became rulers of just about every people, from the Poles down to the Croats, and even probably the Serbs, and of course Italy, but I'm talking about East Central Europe. And to me, 1526, therefore, if we make it 1526 and subsequent centuries, in terms not just the Slavs, but the non-Slavs, because of course the Magyars were affected by them and everything else, I think it would be a wonderful topic. Also, may I just say one more thing? that, and correct me if I'm wrong, this CIS thing first met in 1926, which would make
It's 100 years of,
Yeah.
of the anniversary.
That's right. So in other words, this would be another anniversary that we could combine. So enough said. Yes, go
No,
ahead.
that's excellent, but we will have a battle again, the Battle of Mohács.
Well, that's exactly what happened. Yes, yes, yes.
Marta, last
Thank
one.
you very much. I'll be very short. I absolutely support
She's
the
from Hungary, she
idea
knows.
of Stanhope, but various director, I have something for a new topic probably. There is sometimes 20 years ago at Congress of Slavonic people was a very important topic, Slavia Orthodox, Slavia Latina. About church history, there is also a possibility about talking about the relation between the Slavic lands and neighborings, and also and there is also from the medieval time to the absolutely today there is a problem. What about we could discuss? Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Marta. Ladies and gentlemen, this was the first hour of the last day. We, seen from the Commission, we are very grateful that we could have been included to the meeting, and you accepted that we opened it to all the participants, because this has a double effect. It shows what is possible in a long time tradition having an existing institution like ours. And the other effect is to bring together idea from all, not only institutions, but you as scholars, being active and having trained doctoral students in the field as the next generation in order to continue that work. Never mind if we are still under the condition of the political frame in which we are, it is and remains an issue of us being focused on that part of the world and speaking the languages which were combined under the word Slovanstvo. That would be my last word.